Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the absolute most pressing challenges in AI right now. We're talking about the massive computational cost of long context reasoning and how the industry's absolute cutting-edge models are solving it. We are going to look at four distinct, honestly incredibly clever architectural solutions that are keeping the transformer model alive and kicking. Okay, let's jump right in and introduce our core antagonist for today, the memory bottleneck. You see, as AI reasoning models and agent workflows evolve, they need to keep millions of tokens in their context at once. But you might be wondering, why is that so computationally expensive? Why does holding all that text just absolutely devour memory and compute? Well, the problem is what we call the long context crunch, and it really breaks down into three massive headaches. First up, there's the exploding KV cache size. This is the memory required to actually store the key and value representations of every single word or token the model has seen so far. Second, because that cache gets so incredibly huge, we get extreme memory traffic just moving that data around the chips. And finally, the sheer, staggering cost of computing attention across millions of tokens. Every single architectural tweak we're about to explore today is desperately needed to stop this exact crunch from just totally breaking the bank. Section 1. Gemma 4, the hand-me-down solution. Enter our first hero, Google's Gemma 4. Specifically, we're looking at its highly efficient E2B and E4B models, which are built for smaller local devices. To make these fit on your phone or laptop while still handling large contexts, they implemented this brilliant hand-me-down approach. So in a standard setup, even a really efficient one like grouped query attention, every single layer of the AI computes its own separate key and value projections. But Gemma 4 uses cross-layer KV sharing. It's kind of like instead of buying a brand new reference book for every single worker on an assembly line, the first worker computes the key and value tensors and then just passes that exact same reference book down the line to the subsequent layers. The layers still compute their own distinct queries, but they share the heavy KV data. So why does this matter? Well, let's look at the real-world savings. By simply sharing roughly half of the KV cache across layers, the smallest Gemma 4 model saves 2.7 gigabytes of memory when processing a 120,000 token context window. That is a massive reduction in overhead. It literally allows a tiny model to remember vastly more information without completely crashing your hardware. But Gemma 4 has a second trick up its sleeve, per-layer embeddings, or PLE. Now think about it. If you share too much information between layers, your model might get a bit dull, right? It loses some of its capacity. So instead of making the main math engine, that dense transformer stack, wider and more expensive, Gemma 4 cleverly stores extra capacity in cheap lookup tables. It basically prepares small token-specific embedding slices and injects them as an extra residual update right after the main math is done. It gives the model a fantastic boost in effective size without the massive computational price tag. Section 2, Laguna XS.2, the financial planner. Now let's meet Poolside's Laguna XS.2. This is a coding-focused model that essentially acts like a strict financial planner. If Gemma 4 is the thrifty sibling sharing hand-me-downs, Laguna XS.2 brilliantly manages resources when it comes to attention computation. You see, traditional architectures are surprisingly democratic. They give every single transformer layer the exact same full attention budget, no matter what that layer is actually doing. Laguna XS.2 just throws that out the window with layer-wise budgeting. It's exactly like a movie director who refuses to spread the budget equally everywhere, and instead saves the massive expensive visual effects budget only for the crucial action scenes. Let's break down those allocation rules to see how this works. Laguna XS.2 has 40 total layers. 30 of them are what we call sliding window layers. They only look at local nearby tokens, which is relatively cheap to do. So Laguna gives those layers a generous 8 query heads. But the remaining 10 layers are global layers. Because they have to look across the entire context window, they are mathematically exhausting. So Laguna intentionally restricts them to just 6 query heads. It is absolutely a masterclass in spending compute only where it's most cost-effective. Section 3. Xia 1-8B, the compressor. While the previous models were all about sharing or budgeting, Xifra's Xia 1 takes a highly mathematical, super aggressive compression approach. To really grasp what Xia 1 is doing here, we have to compare it to standard multi-head latent attention, or MLA. In MLA, you compress the data to store it tightly, sure, but when it's time to do the actual attention math, you have to project it back out into a larger space.
Xia 1, on the other hand, uses compressed convolutional attention, or CCA. Xia 1 compresses the queries, keys, and values, and then, get this, actually performs the heavy attention math directly inside that tiny compressed space.
Now, obviously, there's a catch. When you squeeze data that incredibly tightly, you risk losing crucial context. So Xia 1 uses a very clever workaround called convolutional sequence mixing. It essentially runs a very cheap, efficient convolution, which is just a mathematical mixing process, over the compressed queries and keys. This ensures the model doesn't lose that local, immediate context during the extreme compression phase. It's a brilliant way to, have your cake and eat it too.
Section 4. DeepSeek V4, Rewiring the Poor.
Finally, let's bring in our heavy hitter, DeepSeek V4. This model completely rewires the core of the transformer itself. This isn't just tweaking the edges. This is a massive structural release. Let's walk through this step by step, because it really is revolutionary. Usually, information flows through a transformer in a single residual stream. DeepSeek uses manifold-constrained hyperconnections, or MHC. Step 1, it splits that single stream into multiple parallel streams. Step 2, it mixes those streams using learned mappings. But to prevent the signal from going completely chaotic or blowing out, it forces those mappings into doubly stochastic matrices, which are essentially highly stable mathematical bounds. Finally, step 3, it merges them back together. Doing this vastly widens the model's reasoning capacity. And why does this specific structural change matter so much to us? Look at the cost. By widening the pathway into 4 parallel streams, they achieved a vastly richer mixing of information across all the layers, and it only added a 6.7% overhead to training time. That is almost zero extra arithmetic cost for a massive, massive boost in structural reasoning capability. But DeepSeek doesn't stop at the core. They also totally rethink attention itself. Standard models compress data per token. That means even if they compress it, they still keep at least one entry for every single word. DeepSeek fundamentally shrinks the sequence itself. Instead of storing a compressed entry for every single word, it summarizes entire groups of tokens into far fewer entries. It's literally making the actual length of the memory sequence drastically shorter. To balance this out, so the AI doesn't just get total amnesia, DeepSeek intricately alternates its attention layers. First, it uses CSA for a mild, sparse compression. Then, it uses HCA for incredibly aggressive compression, literally squashing 128 tokens down into one single entry. And underneath it all, it keeps a 128-token sliding window of completely uncompressed, fresh tokens, so the AI always remembers exactly what was just said. The result of this alternating sequence-level compression is nothing short of breathtaking. At a 1 million token context window, DeepSeek V4 Pro uses just 10% of the KV cache memory compared to its immediate predecessor. They shrank the memory footprint by 90% without losing the model's ability to reason over massive documents. Absolutely wild.
Section 5. The Big Picture. Transformers are simply evolving.
Let's zoom out for a second and look at what this all tells us about where the AI industry is actually heading. We've looked at hand-me-down KV caches, strict attention budgeting, mathematically compressed latent spaces, and completely rewired residual streams. This summary perfectly ties together our 4 heroes. Each model specifically defeated a different part of the long context crunch. Gemma 4 attacked storage limits. Laguna killed wasteful equal computing. Xia 1 crushed the overhead of the attention math itself, and DeepSeek broke through residual constraints and sequence lengths. There isn't just one single way to optimize an AI anymore. It's becoming this deeply specialized science of targeted tweaks. It's exactly like AI researcher Sebastian Raschka notes here. The transformer isn't dead. The basic recipe is exactly the same as it was years ago, but the parts are being constantly upgraded, replaced, and incredibly specialized to handle the extreme demands of modern reasoning models. We are witnessing the raw evolution of the architecture in real time. Which leaves us with one final, pretty fascinating thought. As these individual components become 10 times more complex, intricately woven with unique budgets, convolutions, and shared caches, what is it going to take for the next wave of engineers to build the next generation of reasoning models completely from scratch? Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.